Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about getting rid of the yo-yo dieting, stopping the eating clean all week, then falling off the wagon and overeating all weekend. If you're someone that feels like you struggled with this, you feel like you're trying so hard to minimize the amount of calories that you eat all week and try to eat super clean all week, and then on the weekends it feels like a struggle. Maybe you've been yo-yo dieting where you're trying to lose that same 5-10 pounds but then just regaining it back every single maybe 6 months, then this video is going to be for you. My first tip for you is to start practicing moderation. And what I mean by moderation is start following the 80-20 rule. And this isn't so strict that you have to literally calculate like I'm allowed 2,000 calories a day and I'm going to take 80% of that and see what that fits into my diet or something along those lines. It's not about being super rigid. It's just about having your checks and balances. So for you, you might feel really good if you have a cup of coffee with sugar and cream, and maybe that's something is like your checks and balances and you're okay with that, and that's something that you feel satiated with, you feel satisfied, it keeps you feeling great. I know that in the past that I tried to do like the skim milk, I've tried to do black with stevia, and it left me feeling like I'm missing out with something. I felt deprived. I felt like there was just something that I needed more of, and then that would end up leading me to binges on the weekends, or maybe I would try to restrict those type of things all during the day, and then that night it was just like I had no more willpower or control anymore, and I just ended up overeating and eating too much. So for me, that's cream in my coffee, but also a stevia, and that's my checks and balances, and that's my balanced eating. And sometimes it's a cookie, sometimes it's 3 cookies, sometimes it's a small piece of chocolate a day, and just a few other things, using things like mayonnaise and like things that I would tell myself are off limits, things that are full fat maybe. Or sometimes maybe it's having something that's fat free, but then also having a ton of like eggs and avocados and things that were higher fat. It's having my proteins, carbs, and fats all together, and just having a good balance of what I'm eating. I typically having a lot more vegetables, and those are filling up half of my plate, and then having other things. I'm having starchy carbs, I'm having protein at almost every meal, every big meal, and just making sure I'm finding foods that make me feel good, that keep me satisfied. There's nothing more difficult than trying to eat clean all week, all of the time. This is just gonna set yourself up for failure and feeling like a failure when you fall off that wagon. No one can do it. And it's also getting rid of those feelings or those words and thoughts about food itself. Saying things like things are clean, or even the organic and unorganic, and then just things that are like sweets, junk food, all of that stuff can definitely mess with your head and make you feel like you're doing something wrong when you eat things that aren't on there. Feeling like you have some sort of sugar addiction because you have a little bit of sweet stuff, and it makes you feel like, oh, all of a sudden I haven't had sweets, I cut out sugar for 2 weeks, and then you allow it, and then all of a sudden you can't stop. But it's really partly the fact that you've been depriving yourself for so long. So checking in with that, making sure you're having a little bit of moderation, or including moderation in your diet, and making sure you're having the things that keep you satisfied. So maybe this can be a list of like 3 to 5 things that you know that you need every single day to feel really good and feel really healthy. Like I said, it's cream in my coffee. But you know what else? It may be things like including, I like to eat at night. I like to have rice cakes, and I have like 3 or 4 of them I have sun butter on them. And then sometimes I even have things like sugar-free Jell-O, and it's like, oh, that's a diet food, but you know what? I throw in a ton of whipped cream on there. So it's like, these are my little checks and balances to keep me consistent with my foods. I have things like a bar, or like a protein bar, and I take a few bites off it here and there, and it doesn't feel like I have to finish the entire thing, but it just settles that sweet tooth that I have, that I know that I have, that nighttime eating that I do enjoy and that I allow myself. So this works for me, but finding what your sweet spot is, really learning to be in tune with yourself, finding that awareness, a little bit of checking in with yourself. Checking in with your hunger cues is always another big thing to just try to figure out what's triggering these binge episodes. Is it because you told yourself you couldn't eat these foods? Is it because you told yourself that these foods were bad? Or maybe you're like, I'll only allow them on the weekend, so you feel frustrated, and then all of a sudden it's like a free-for-all when you finally get to eat them. I've had another video about why I don't agree and with cheat meals or cheat days or anything like that. Even the word cheat and treat can definitely be triggering. Another big thing to check in with is exercise and how much you're exercising. Exercise can definitely increase hunger levels to a point that does not feel normal or is definitely triggering for some people. So if you're doing a lot of exercise, even an hour of cardio might be too much for you. So tuning in with that, if you're doing a ton of cardio, your body's gonna start to feel tired, exhausted, and those are gonna increase those cravings and those feelings to eat a little bit more than you maybe actually need, or even feel like you need sugary stuff because your sugar levels drop and you feel like you're just exhausted, you're tired, and you just want to eat everything in sight. So tuning into that, dropping the amount of exercise that you're doing will be super helpful in cutting down this amount of times that you've been inconsistent on your diet, where you're having one day you're eating like really good and then the next day you're just like a free-for-all and you feel like you can't control yourself. One tool that I like to use with clients is tuning into whether you'd like to eat a little bit more and you're more social on the weekends, and allowing for that. So if you're someone that likes to be social, go out to eat, do a little bit of you're more active maybe even too, so you feel like you just need to eat a little bit more, allowing the fact that you are able to eat a little bit more on the weekends. Maybe that includes a little bit more of your sweets that you enjoy on the weekends, and being okay with that. If you're doing something like tracking macros, you have higher calories during those days. If you're someone that's not tracking macros, just really being okay with the fact that maybe you're eating a little bit more on the weekends and you're maybe more active, but even if you're not more active, that's all right too. Just allowing that flexibility in your life. Maybe it's during the week that you're just tuning in and you're adding more vegetables in the week, and then on the weekend, maybe it's less vegetables, and that's okay. It's all about having flexibility and being moderate and just consistent along the way. As I've mentioned before, if you're someone that has been dieting forever, you definitely need to stop right about now. So reverse dieting, getting up to maintenance, and you may need to be at maintenance for a very long time before you make any changes again, because your body is probably tired, your mind's probably tired, your soul's probably tired from dieting too much, and there's absolutely no reason that you should feel ever to have to diet or change your body. If you choose to, then that's you. You do you. So whatever makes the most sense for you, tuning into what that is. It's all about awareness, as I've talked about before. Just finding your triggers as well. If you're someone that gets triggered through emotional eating or triggers through your emotions, if you're feeling like overwhelmed, stress. I mean, we've all been dealing with a ton of stress right now in this coronavirus situation, and just trying to tune into that and realizing what your trigger is and finding something out of that. Overeating and these tendencies to just suppress or to restrict and then binge and then restrict and then binge and then start that cycle does become quite a bit of a habit. So learning to break that habit is sometimes as simple as including more food in your diet throughout the week, throughout the day, getting more carbs in, figuring out if you're someone who likes fats, someone who likes carbs more, just making sure you're figuring out what you need to do to make changes to that. And just know that this process takes time. It's not something, it's like all of a sudden flick of a switch and you're gonna be better. It's not gonna be like that at all. It takes time to get over this. I've said this in videos before. Things take you have to enjoy the process, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. I hope these tips were helpful for you guys. You can find me at Kimberly Rose Platt on Instagram. And as always, leave something in the comments if you like this video, and make sure to like and subscribe.